These are exciting times, as many of you are well aware. Many of the things that our species and other species have talked about are coming to pass in certain lights. All of you are responding quite well. The idea is the more conscious you become, the more empowered you become, and ultimately the more of yourselves you become, the more aware you become of the story that you prefer to live out in your reality. We remind you that the Akashic record that many of you read when you're doing your psychic readings, this is a record that is made up of story books, each lifetime, which contains within it a myriad of different perspectives. All of this is considered to be a story in space, a story in time. And it is actually stored within the space around you. Now, it is important to keep in mind, not all space is identical. Space can take on different qualities because on the solar system level, on the planetary level, both time and space operate as basic elements. So there are different types of space. For example, the space that you perceive around you is of a different quality than the space that is within your body. And even within the body, the different versions of space that exist are quite different. The space that surrounds the atoms, subatomic particles, and molecules that make up your heart, this space is of a different quality than, for example, the space that makes up the structure of your brain in the most fundamental way. In that sense, you could say in a linear translation, spirit is first, space is second, time is third. Space and time both possess what you would consider to be expressions of basic elemental energy, because once you pass the threshold of time, then you move into the 5 major elements. Spirit already expressed as the first one, the other 4, fire, air, water, earth. So in that way, these 7 powers work together. But we remind you that even this 7 is just an extension of a previous, more primordial elemental structure, which we will get into at a later date, at a later time. We're sharing this with you because we want you to remember, just as you possess fire, just as you possess water, you also possess time, you also possess space. You must see these things as extensions of you, not as forces of the universe outside of you, but as something that you are actually commanding and as something that you are actually influencing and in a certain light controlling, if you want to use that term. And what do we mean by this? The higher and lower levels of you work together to manipulate space and time as the experience that is had whilst you shift through different parallel realities. You consider the shifting of one parallel reality experience into another to be an evolution in your experience of space and time. What's occurring within space, what is occurring within time has changed. And you describe this as a change in your story, a change in your life, and at the largest levels, a change in your timeline. So we want you to know this because you are evolving at a rate that allows for you to process this information. These are things you know. These are things that have been told to you before. But as we speak now, we are projecting embodiment of these things into the words coming through the avatar's mouth. So that way you can sense what it is like to actually live these realities where you are conscious of how you are organizing space and how you are organizing time. This is a side effect of elevation in what you would describe as moderate to slightly high fourth density. And this is a side effect of your proximity to us, but first and foremost, it is a direct side effect of how you're living your lives. Enlightenment does not necessarily come from contact with extraterrestrial beings, but it is a common side effect. The primary cause of what you would consider to be enlightenment is your own personal self-guided evolution. And it is a matter of playful focus, if you will. And what we mean is the following. If you are in a dream and you become lucid in that dream, you may be lucid momentarily, but then many of you will fall asleep once again. The power of the dream world seems to overtake the dreamer's consciousness, and the dream becomes real once more. Enlightenment represents the glimpse into the recognition and into the perspective that the physical reality is just a dream and that somehow you are giving rise to it. Somehow you are a part of an active relationship with the very force of creation itself. These moments of recognition where your perspective elevates can also include learning a deep life lesson. It can also include the reception of esoteric information. It can also have to do with expanding your skill sets. All of these things are different qualities, different gradations of what you would call enlightenment. So that comes from you. And as a side effect of this, you attract to you what you would call an enlightened species or extraterrestrial faction or group, because an enlightened person is simply someone who refuses to fall asleep again in the dream. That's it. And they are continuing to expand their sense of enlightenment, because once you obtain those levels of realization, it's not the end of the road. You have to integrate them. And as you integrate them, new lessons are given to you, new understandings are given to you. And as you can see, it is technically an eternal summit. The integrations might be the peaks, the plateaus, and the valleys, but ultimately it goes back up. It is an eternal summit of the self. And very obviously, something that powerful and archetypal transcends death. It's not as if you stop this when your life stops. You continue this type of learning in spirit, but from a more liberated perspective, where you're more aware of yourself, you're more aware of your cosmic identity, you're more aware of your powers, your abilities, how to use them. So how you navigate that will in many ways be much more expansive than what you have access to on earth. But the more conscious you become on earth, the more of that soul self through the higher self, through the heart center, you're able to bring in to your life. So we thank you for receiving this. We encourage you, continue to keep your spirits high. Things will heat up. Things will get strange, but that does not have to stop you. And when we say they will heat up, when we say they will be strange, what do we mean? Things will vibrate more quickly. That's the heat. The strangeness has to do with things you have not experienced before, the unexpected. Because many of you have been asking for this, yes? Sometimes your local reality can feel a little repetitive. It can feel as if things are the same, things aren't changing, and you'd like to see certain changes. So the strange has to do with experiences that may seem too good to be true, and as an extension of this, they may seem almost alien, unexpected. You may experience interesting challenges that bring different chapters of your life into a close, and that simultaneously open up higher possibility for you. Think of this as a type of rapid shifting process where you are navigating junction points within the timeline stream. And as all of these different timelines coalesce in this specific region, you're able to draw energy from these various timelines, and you can impress those energies upon your own. So once you then move past that junction, you're going to have a great deal of different energies available to you that can take root in your reality in a very auspicious way. Of course, that's how you choose to use this time. This acceleration, of course, is also a reference to the notion that you're moving, for those in the northern hemisphere, further into summer. So naturally, things will heat up. Summer is a peak. So, of course, in the stories in your lives, there will be peaks. So recognize the seasonal cycles, because as you are aware, they clearly influence your mood. If you go outside when it's very hot, you will have a certain type of psychological state, metabolic state that you'll have to contend with. You'll have to balance in some way. If it's very cold outside, the same thing's true. So you can see, if you're so affected by weather, why would you not be affected by the very forces that govern weather? This is why in ancient times, the seasons even were considered gods and goddesses. So never forget the cycles of nature, because they will help you understand the cycles of your life, because you are inseparable from nature. And as we said, every perspective in the Akashic record is a part of a story. So you must remember that nature itself is a story that will speak to you if you pay attention and look for the parallels in your own life. And if you're looking to solve a challenge, consider the solutions that nature provides. Look at how nature, look at how Earth solves her challenges through manipulating weather patterns, through changing the terrain, through altering animal behavior and migration. All of these are important things to factor in and are metaphors for strategies you can use in your life.